Happy International Women's Day for those of you that are... No, wait, never mind, doesn't matter. It won't be International Women's Day when I actually, what's it called? Turn down this volume so I can think. Turn that down, I can't see. Won't be Women's International Day when this is posted. It'll probably be posted like the 11th. Yeah. Scheduling is fun. But as promised, I said I was gonna work my ass off for this freaking like romance ending because God, gotta love those romances. So I did a little, yeah, this is a while back. Today is the 8th? Huh? Just as I pick up my phone, my boyfriend texts me. Yes, boo, what I want. What do you want? Stop laughing at me, I know. I know I'm incompetent. I can't spell. Incompetent. There we go. Siri did it for me. Ugh, alright. So I did a little cheat for skipping things, and we're just gonna fast skip to the answers. I was promised this was gonna be good. Alright. Yes. I'm only making freaking guesses, so we're just gonna skip a lot. Okay, we're gonna force him to stay this time. Very well. I feel like I'm imprisoning him. Stay. Stay. Okay, so we haven't really posted this information, so I gotta slow down. Normally, if you feel strongly about a course of action, usually pertaining to your welfare, he doesn't hesitate to argue about it. Not willing to look a gift horse in the mouth, you decide not to question it. In the long pause that follows, the only sound in the room comes from your fork scraping along the bottom of your tray as you take a few bites. Clearly, any conversation is going to have to start with you. Chewing, you try to organize your thoughts enough to decide what to ask him first. It's a little hard to think with him sitting there silently watching you eat. So what do you do before... Excuse me, what was that? I was in the middle of something there. Oh, the back button's on my freaking mouse. Okay, so what do you do before you... What did you do before you were enlisted into the spirit? I can't English today, apparently. Laugh nervously. You're making me self-conscious, staring like that. Would it be alright if I asked you a few questions about being an android? Alright, we're going for full-blown, like, romance, so let's go for it. Your words have an unexpected effect of calling his attention to you even more intensely, if that's possible. You shift in your seat slightly, envisioning him burning a hole through you if he continues to stare any harder. To get your back thoughts in order. Right, English, grammar, great, amazing, yes, I am born and raised in America. To get your thoughts back in order, you stall by taking a drink of water. I make you self-conscious. Liquid sloshes over the rim of your glass as you practically drop it back on the table. That is not the direction you expected him to take the conversation in. Yep, swallow your water sideways and descend into a pathetic coughing fit. Cheeks burning, you wonder how Silas would react if he just died here to a combination of asphyxiation and acute humiliation. Can people die of embarrassment? You suppose not, since you were still breathing after a shower fiasco. Unaware of your spiraling thoughts, Silas encourages you to keep coughing, rubbing his hand gingerly over your back much higher than a human would, possibly because he's never done it before and it serves no real purpose. Eventually, the coughing fit subsides enough for you to hear him speak. Are you all right? Yeah, sorry about that. As I was about to say. How did you wind up enlisting on the spirit? You mentally congratulate yourself on navigating the conversation back into safe waters. Mercifully, he follows your example without comment. Silas folds his hands neatly on the tabletop before answering. I was enlisted only 2 years after I was equipped with advanced artificial intelligence. My existence prior to that would not interest you, I'm sure. I did not form relationships with others until after the AI was upgraded. What do you mean, upgraded? Before a unit is upgraded, their AI is very simple. They can obey uncomplicated orders, but they have no ability to reason or adapt. Many cannot even do that much without a command line prompt of some sort, and they typically cannot talk. Some units go their whole existence in that state, working in menial capacities. I couldn't English, my god. I myself used to crush rubble and clear land for construction before I was commissioned. Your fork hovers in the air, forgotten, in front of your mouth. It's strange to imagine him living like that before you met. If living is what you should even call it, the word doesn't quite match up to your idea of life, and you suspect it doesn't match his either. The way he carefully replaces it with the term existence is telling. During those 2 years, however, I was kept in the LAS headquarters, building where I assisted my makers in the assembly and maintenance of other Model 51s. Oh, is that why? He turns away from you slightly, touching a fingertip over the imposed number printed on his chest. Yes, I believe that my creator developed a fondness for me, calling me by the name Silas instead of just printing a full serial number on me like the others. There's just the tiniest hint of disdain in his voice as he mentions the other Model 51s. Odd, but then you consider how many turns his short life has taken already. Android or not, they've undoubtedly changed him. He's probably seen and done more than most of his fellow synthesoids ever will, and because of that, he probably feels about as disconnected from them as he does from humans. Did you like it there, working on the assembly line with your creator? Is that also why he left you uncollared? Or uncolored? Uncollared. The grammar Nazi in me is making me, beg to look up to make sure. I gotta know. Because, for all I know, uncolored could mean the same thing. Uncolored. Or uncollared. Having no color. Yeah, it's uncolored. Huh. Oh, that's right. His lips and eyes, they're glowing because they're okay. Did you like it there, working on the assembly line with your creator? He nods, looking thoughtful. It was very satisfying. My creator treated me with rare concern and kindness. I was troubled when his tenure with the company ended. Sympathy swells within you as you take another bite. You have an idea where the story is going. As company property, I was not permitted to stay with him, and because he left, my purpose there was thrown into question. You feel your brow furrow, a bit in confusion. Why didn't they just keep you in for the next person who filled your creator's job position? I was not informed why they made the decision to sell me to the curators of spirit. It is not in my nature to question direct orders. I suspect it had to do with the fact that my creator customized me to suit his preferences. The way his eyes shift make you believe that these modifications were not entirely cosmetic, despite his distinct looks. In fact, you were a betting woman, you'd put money on the suspicion that they weren't entirely legal, either. That would certainly explain why they sell him off to a disaster relief crew, of all things. Rescue missions and relief efforts don't fail too often in this age, but they are classified as risky endeavors, something you can personally confirm. Sounds like he was really attached to you. It's disgusting that they treated you like you were completely disposable. Sounds like the company might have wanted to just get rid of you. It's disgusting that they treated you like you were completely disposable. His expression is not committal and indifferent. You practically expect him to shrug. I suppose. If you are finished eating, I would like to return to my duties now. You glance down at your tray, shocked to find that it is, in fact, nearly empty. Oh, okay, sure. He pauses, eyes turning to gaze at you with such an obvious air of appreciation that you can't help grinning in response. I hope you found my company satisfactory, Miss Akuma. I know that many humans think I am unnerving. Most people find the attention of good-looking men to be unnerving, Silas. Obviously, that's what I'd have to do for the full romance, and I'm so comfortable with that. Your company was exactly what I needed, Silas. Thank you. Nonsense. I love talking to you. Shrug. It's not like I haven't. Okay, that's ass. That's ass. That's half-assed. Neutral. Full-on. Fuck me. The face he makes could be described as quietly taken back. Quietly... Is it quietly taken back? English? Sure. On a human. On him, it looks so incredibly stunned that you have a hard time holding your laughter in check. Then he lowers his gaze to the table between you and adds softly, "Your appearance is also very pleasing. You have undeniable symmetry, and the distance between your eyes is exactly 30 millimeters. Well, this is possibly the single strangest compliment you have ever received. You take it in stride, giggling a bit. That's nice, Silas. Thank you." He bows his head, standing up. "It has been my pleasure to serve." Before he can say anything more, he swiftly turns on his heel and heads for the door. At the threshold, he halts for a moment, looking back at you with a very intent gaze. "I took the liberty of acquiring a data pad for you to use in your downtime. You will find it on your bunk when you return to your quarters." "What? You acquired..." You gape after him slightly, but don't have a chance to ask him where it came from before he turns the corner to disappear down the hall. Okay, this is where we start getting similar dialogue, so we're gonna skip till choices. Find him and hug him right now. Yes. Skip. Okay. Yes. Okay, take pity on him and break off the hug smiling. That's all I wanted to say. Psst, this is the part where you put your hands on my waist and hug me back, or snuggle close and relax, Silas. I'm not going to bite you. He is still not loosening up to your satisfaction because you're right there, pressed against him. You lift yourself up on your toes, pressing a light kiss to his cheek. Lots of dots. A tiny spark of electric current tingles your lips, and there is no other way to describe it. He melts under your affection. His hands finally settle on your back just above your waist. There is no pressure or weight on them. He is simply reciprocating your touch, reassuring you that while he may not know what to do, this is by no means an unwanted advance. There goes the blushies. You shift slightly in his embrace, trying to get more comfortable. While there is certainly less give to his body than an average human's, you would still say that he's surprisingly huggable. He mumbles something incomprehensible into your hair. His arms tighten just a fraction. Right when you feel him begin to unwind, he uses his grip to gently pull away and look down at you. He looks happy. You're welcome. The two of you stare at each other a bit awkwardly for a minute as you lower your arms. I should go and write some messages to my family before I go to bed. Yes, that would be a sensible course of action. After a strangely loaded pause, you both turn to head back to your respective areas of the ship, looking like a pair of shy, prepubescent children. You return to your cabin with a sigh. Was that really just about gratitude? The answer doesn't seem too clear anymore, not from your perspective, and you suspect his would even be more confusing. Not wanting to get caught up in it when you really just want to bask in the good things that have happened to you today, you turn your attention to the data pad on your bunk instead. Yep. Skip. Okay. Yes. We're getting to similar dialogue. Oh, shit. Huh? Oh, you're done? I think we need to go back a lot. Oh, shit. Oh, well. He expresses his confusion with slightly squinted eyes, a quirk he may or may not have picked up from you. Recalibrating this cryopod has taken me over 46 days. Even with our limited resources, I should have been able to complete the work in less time. Yet, you are disappointed that it has not taken longer. No, I was just asking for clarification. I'll be going under tomorrow then. I was thinking that I could maybe stay awake just a bit longer. Yes, to be honest, I was hoping we could spend more time together. Full-blown romance, here we go. The expression that crosses his face deserves a stronger word than shocked. You imagine that for an android, appalled would be more accurate. That would be astronomically unwise. Your rations will only last so long and should be preserved as much as possible in the event of an There's more than enough on board for me to make it the rest of the trip. As for the risks, you said yourself that we're only about a month's distance from Amalthea. Maybe less. If we're careful, I should not need to remind you of the fact that unforeseen events can always occur. He's angry. He hasn't spoken to you this harshly in weeks. The force of his sudden anger is surprising in its intensity, even more so when he finishes his thought. I will ensure you are in that pod by force if I must. Force? Whether or not I get into the pod is my decision, Silas. You can't really argue with that logic. Fine, you're right, I was being silly. No. Independent woman, and I don't want to go. Silas stares at you in a mute disbelief, but you stand firm. You're not going to let him dictate your choices for you, especially when he uses such frightening words like force. His hands reach out, latching onto your arms in a firm grip. He's careful not to hurt you, but there's no squirming away as he gives you a slight shake. This course of action is beyond foolish. You are beyond foolish for considering it. Your lips press together in an angry scowl, but you don't deny it. At your stubborn refusal to speak, Silas mirrors your glare, shaking you once more for good measure. Why will you not make the choice that is clearly right? I do not understand, Akuma. The instant his voice reaches a loud enough volume, it seems to snap him out of his frustrated outburst. When he continues speaking, it's much softer. Make me understand. There's a trace of pleading in his voice that tugs at something inside you. You might have softened toward him in another scenario. You must see that this decision is only logical. He pauses, staring down at the way his hands are grabbing you tightly. You can't help but notice he's looking at them as if they belong to a complete stranger. I do not wish to take your decisions away, but I cannot allow you to endanger yourself. His voice gives a very out-of-character tremble, and he suddenly clutches at his head with one hand, as if in pain. My human safety protocols won't allow it. Do you understand? If I deem a human incapable of making rational decisions regarding their own safety, I'm obliged to save them any way I can. And ignore that stutter, please. I'm hardly making irrational decisions. I'm not actively harming myself. He's taking your choices away, regardless of how he's trying to justify it to himself. As if reading your mind, he meets your gaze directly and realizes belatedly what he's trying to do. He's trying to communicate the turmoil and inner conflict he's feeling through eyes that were never meant to convey such things. Such as anything so complex. I'm making my own story again, god damn it. You can't see the emotions, but you can see the visible effort he's making to show them, and that is powerful in its own right. Please, don't fight this. There is no doubt in your mind that he's begging you now. If he were capable of tears, you fully believe he would shed them. You may feel as though your choices are being taken from you. But know that I never had any to begin with. Touch his face gently. I'm sorry, Silas, but if you try to force me in there, I'll fight it. Fine, let's just let me walk out of here like it was my choice. Let me pretend. That's all irrelevant. Wanting to make my own decisions does not make me irrational. I'm gonna fight it. I require clarification. His face works furiously, and you look on with anxious hope. He's trying to find some kind of loophole in his programming. Oh, is he trying to find some kind of loophole in his programming? You aren't sure how AIs work exactly, but you know that the more advanced the android, the more freedom they have to interpret their protocols as they see fit. Silas is not like any android you've met before. Surely he... Do you mean that by forcing you into the pod, I would not be able to restrain you without you struggling enough to risk causing yourself physical injury? Yes. You agree quickly, seeing the path he's on and helping him toward it. His shoulders slump in defeat. You hold your breath, wanting to believe you won, but waiting to hear him confirm it. Then I will have to take the path of least resistance. I will not take any action that could harm you, even if I believe the odds of your survival would increase by doing so. Inside you feel a rush of victory and can't help but smiling a little bit. Your android obviously does not return it. Instead, he turns on his heels and leaves without another word. You let him go for now, recognizing that he might need time to decompress. Eventually, you make your way back to your cabin. And here we go with some unforeseen text. When you reach the sanctuary of your bunk, you collapse on top of it with a tired huff. The weight of your encounter with Silas demands some thought, but you know thinking about it will only frustrate you. Your emotions still feel all over the place. Until you can sort them out, you decide that keeping some distance between yourself and your android is the best thing to do. This is harder said than done. You attempt to distract yourself by sending some more updates to your family and friends, but your mind keeps drifting back to the somewhat impulsive decision made not to use the cryopod. You're still not sure if standing your ground with Silas was the right thing to do, but you don't exactly regret it either. Your thoughts turn over and over hours into the night. It's a long time before you finally fall asleep. You last almost 48 hours before breaking down. in combination of boredom and then the need for some closure following that last conversation, drives you to seek out your moody android as soon as you finish your breakfast and clean yourself up. As far as you know, he hasn't left the navigation room since the other day. Can't help but wonder... What? Wonderful interruptions. And now everybody wonders why I record at 4 a.m. and shit. Can't help but wonder what his plan is exactly. To hide away in there for the rest of the trip? It's absurd. Even worse, it undermines your original purpose, which was to spend more time with the stubborn idiot. Clearly, waiting for him to come to his senses and offer you an apology is pointless, even though he's the one with the problem. You're almost tempted to use the pod out of sheer frustration. Would sleeping the next month away in solitude really be that bad? You scoff. If being ignored by your surely robot friend is your only other option, then probably not. The thought is best put aside for now anyway. You need to talk to him first, if for no other reason than the fact that you need him to get into the engine room. Mind made up, you make your way slowly back down the hall. The door to the nav room is, of course, locked. Having gotten this far on impulse and not much else, you knock while trying not to think too hard about it. To his credit, he doesn't make you wait long. The door slides open after only a moment, leaving you to imagine him standing at the door, anxiously waiting for you to make an appearance. Perhaps wishful thinking, but it could be that he's just as ready to end this separation as you are. He meets your gaze hesitantly, and the sight of him standing right there, looking at you all of a sudden, flusters you a little. Yes. Lift your chin, say nothing, and push gently past him into the room. We need to talk, Silas. Cross your arms and wait. Hi, I just thought we should talk about what happened the other day. Scowl, I've thought about it, and I've decided that you're right. I want to use the pod. Okay, if I talk to him out here, he has the ability to close the door. So I'm going to lift my chin, hold my head held high, and push gently past him into the room. You don't turn around, but you hear him give a soft sigh behind you. I'm asserting my damn dominance. Once you've made it to the end of the bridge, he stops you with the soft brush of fingers over your shoulder. You've come to speak about what happened the other day. He summarizes accurately enough that you give a grudging nod. As far as you're concerned, you've made all the effort he deserves just by showing up. The rest is going to have to come from him. He slowly makes his way around until you're facing each other. You deign to make eye contact and wait, watching as he visibly searches for the right words to say. I do not believe I was able to adequately express my dilemma the other day. It must have seemed like I was being domineering when I insisted you return to the cryogenic sleep. The mechanism in his jaw is working in an odd way. From the outside, it looks like he's gritting his teeth against something unpleasant. I perceive that you were not making decisions in a logical manner. The thought that you would run the risk of a food shortage just to... He has trouble forming the words. To be with me, I could not allow it. You make it sound so frivolous when that was even the main issue. You're such a guy, Silas. That's not why I was upset. It was stupid, but I would manage to change my mind if you hadn't threatened me. You're such a guy, Silas. That's not why I was upset. The look of confusion on his face is gratifying. No, it wasn't. Regardless of whether my choice was impulsive or not, very well thought out, you completely overreacted. In fact, I go so far as to say I probably would have changed my mind if you hadn't turned all male chauvinist, on me. You halfway expect him to argue or at least ask what gender has to do with any of this, but he merely turns his gaze aside, avoiding eye contact with you. Rather than looking defensive, he seems to be taking your criticism directly to heart. It's nothing he hasn't already told himself, you realize. It was never my intent to frighten you. He turns his body slightly away, looking down at the navigation console in front of him. He reaches out to place a hand on it, running his fingers aimlessly across a large stretch of empty space on the panel. The act is so at odds with his usual economy of movement that you immediately classify it as his way of fidgeting. No, that's a lie. I did intend to frighten you. My protocols demand I use any means necessary to maximize your odds for survival. I tried to scare you into compliance, and while I cannot honestly say I believe my actions were wrong, or that I could have done anything differently, I apologize if they hurt you mentally or emotionally. You stare until even he, the inflappable android, feels obliged to make contact with you again. It's impossible to tell from his facial expression alone whether he's being genuine or not, but you can't imagine why he would claim to be sorry if he wasn't. Okay, I know that you're just trying to protect me, so I accept your apology. Well, I guess I can give you points for not going through with it. You're forgiven then. I appreciate the apology, but I need time to decide how I feel about everything. I forgive you, but I need to know this isn't going to happen again, Silas. Okay, I know that return for episodes. Well, I guess I can give you points for not going through with it. You're forgiven then. He doesn't look very comforted by your forgiveness. If anything, his countenance turns even more grim. You look up, startled, as your companion's entire body suddenly tenses. His handsome face twists into somewhat stilted-looking scowl, and when he speaks, his voice is tight with strain. This is precisely part of the problem. His fingers stop moving against the console and tighten into a fist instead. A human man would understand your needs in this situation better than I. I think we've achieved it. His icy eyes bore into yours as if daring you to contradict him. I am a machine. A malfunctioning one at that. I cannot care for you the way you desire me to. Oh, we're blushies. I love how, occasionally I'll look up and the character's either blushing or mad, but I'm so focused on words. Your heart leaps into your throat at his words. Something about the way he hasn't looked away, eyes piercing you, freezing you in place, tells you he's not just talking about needing or caring the way they've applied to your relationship in the past. You have no idea what kind of face you're making, but Silas softens a little at the sight of it. His own expression relaxes into a wistful sort of frown. His hand comes up shortly, surprising you, and hovers uncertainly in the air between your faces, just shy of your cheek. I was not made for this. Somehow his words manage to be an explanation, an apology, and a request all in one. When you don't move away, he takes it as permission to touch you, slowly extending his fingers in a way that gives you the means to retreat at any time. He cups your face in his hand with great care, as if he's afraid you might fall apart at any moment. His fingers are so long they curl comfortably over the sensitive shell of your ear. Fastidiously, he tucks a few strands of hair behind it in a move that is so painfully Silas that you can't help giving an audible sigh. He stops moving, palm warm and solid against your cheek. This is completely illogical. Frowning more deeply than ever, Silas watches you with an intense focus that looks almost pained. I am not made for this. He searches you, gazing over each of your features longingly, until his attention settles on your mouth. So why do I want it? Say nothing, just lean up swiftly, take charge, and kiss him. You keep trying to remind me what you are. Do you even still believe it yourself? If you want it, then take it. There's nothing stopping you. You keep trying to remind me what you are. Do you even still believe it yourself? You can't help feeling a bit flushed at the way he won't stop staring. He's watching your mouth as if he's adrift in a deep space vacuum, and your lips are pure, life-giving oxygen. I am no longer certain of anything. He leans toward you, close enough that you feel the faintest stir of his breath against your face. But no closer. His eyes lift to meet yours, and you realize what he's waiting for. Confirmation. A final sign from you that this is all right, that you want this as much as he does. In reply, you take that last step, tentatively resting your hands against his broad chest and tilting your head to the side. His gaze scans over your half-closed eyes and upturned face, as if he's trying to calculate the best avenue of approach. You try to wait patiently. When he finally moves in to kiss you, it is only the softest, most innocent brushing of lips. And yet, you feel that startling rush of static electricity tingle through your skin again, similar to the way it felt when he grabbed your arm in the hall a couple weeks ago. It tickles, causing you to break away from him, giggling. You laugh all the harder at his look of mild irritation. That is not an appropriate reaction to being kissed, Akuma. He informs you of this in a completely deadpan voice, clearly affecting indifference, even though his bottom lip is pursed in an unmistakable pout. Sorry. Straightening out your expression, you bring him in closer by wrapping your arms around his neck. Want to try again? He considers you seriously, and for a moment you're afraid he might actually refuse. Yes, I will attempt to adjust. Aww, oh my goodness gracious. I was told it would be beautiful, and it was. He doesn't bother finishing his thought. Head already dipping down with the intent of kissing you again. His lips press firmly against yours this time, and the static sensation is deeper, more penetrating, and definitely not tickling you in any way. It's a dull, persistent hum against your lips, odd, but in a pleasant way. He retreats, allowing you to take exactly one gasping breath before he tilts his head and slants his mouth even more insistently across yours. The kiss deepens and you feel your knees shaking alarmingly. Thankfully, Silas appears fully cognizant of the danger. His solution is to take you in his arms, turn, and support you against the nearest solid object. You barely have time to cling to his shoulders before you find yourself being thoroughly kissed against the navigation panel. His lean body stretches out above yours, and the inexplicable need to have him closer drives you to bury your fingers in his hair as you pull him forward with the other hand clutching at his upper back. It's so cute. Wait, back. Nope, we were right. Okay. His lean body stretches out. Yes. Okay. Obliging you eagerly. Silas leans eagerly. Holy shit. Silas leans his weight against you, heavy and solid and male. Distantly, beyond the roaring sound of your own pulse, you hear something strange. Abruptly, he stiffens. Before you have time to do more than glance up at him in confusion, Silas drags you back into a standing position. Your head spins slightly at the sudden shift. We must have accidentally disengaged the main engine. Words come out in rapid fire, his attention shifting so instantaneously to the panel in front of him that it's almost insulting. He quickly enlarges the holographic display and keys in a new sequence of commands. Ears barely catch the low rumble of heavy machinery starting up right after something like a low-intensity earthquake rocks the entire ship. You keep your feet, largely thanks to Silas' steady presence in front of you. There, they should be back online shortly. His posture slumps forward a bit as he hunches over the navigational panel in front of him. He's hiding his face from you, but you don't need to actually see it to know that he's already beating himself up for the silly mistake. Put a hand on his shoulder. You aren't regretting this already, are you? Embrace him comfortably from behind and press it. No, yeah, don't want to force him because he's confused. His back straightens and he catches your hand reflexively before it slides off of him. He lowers it gently, but doesn't let go, even when he turns to face you with a surprised look in his eyes. Of course I do not. I'm not so changeable as that. You smile discreetly at the offended tone in his voice, but let him finish without interruption. No, it is simply that this has reminded me of the damage a single distraction can cause. We're fortunate it was only the main engine that got caught off. The next time we become careless, we may meet with a catastrophe similar to the Spirit. His words are harsh enough that you almost cringe away, but there's also no accusation in them. He doesn't blame you for distracting him. If anything, he's looking at you with something dangerously close to affection right now. I do not say any of this to hurt you, however. On the contrary, it has made me realize that for the first time in my existence, I have something that is mine. He looks you directly in the eye, and his meaning is clear, even if he might not be ready to declare it outright. Something I have no wish to even risk losing. Touch you can barely speak with the sudden swelling of your throat. Right. What the... Oh, yeah, that's right. I have a gaming mouse, so the scrolling part is really sensitive, so it was reacting to me moving the mouse. Laugh to disguise the sudden urge you have to cry. Well, when you put it like that, I guess it's time then. He gives you a smile of such heart-melting fondness that it's hard to believe you've ever considered him less than human. Hand in hand, the two of you leave the navigation room and make the long trek from one end of the ship to the other. Neither of you breaks its silence. You can't speak for him, but you're content to try and soak everything in for the last time, just in case your next wake-up is as disorienting as the last one was. He lets go of you briefly to type in the code that opens the engine room's doors. With a gentle hand on your lower back, he walks you in, and the two of you make your way to the outside of the cryopod. By unspoken agreement, you stop at the base of the ladder while he continues onto the control panel. You study Silas closely from this distance. This android, this man, has come to mean so much to you in such a short time. You can't shake the fear that this relatively brief separation is going to mess things up somehow. Oblivious to your thoughts, Silas busies himself with the cryopod's controls. As he gets everything prepared, you try to compose a suitable goodbye in your head with the time you have left. All too soon, the lid of the cryopod rises up and the ladder extends with a soft mechanical whir. Your android turns to you with a soft, though otherwise inscrutable look. Are you ready? You aren't sure why he's making this sound so final, but it makes you feel even uneasier. Dismiss it as you just being nervous. Yes, I'll see you when I wake up, Silas. You can't help blurting out, you'll be here when I wake up, right? He freezes, his eyes going a tiny bit wider before he's able to fully conceal his reaction. We all know his plan from the first ending we got. We got to make sure he's there. When he speaks, the careful, deliberate way he chooses his words only increase your rising paranoia. I cannot guarantee that everything will be as it was before. You blank, not quite sure what you're hearing. What? Just what is that supposed to mean? You glare at him, speaking perhaps a little louder than you intended to. You can't help it, though. Your nerves are too frayed at the moment to deal with any cryptic nonsense. This is not... I must. He cuts himself off, looking to the side with one fist clenched. The look of frustration in his eyes is one you are becoming intimately familiar with. You must what? What must you do now? His stubborn silence is as worrisome as it is infuriating. There's obviously something more going on here that he doesn't want to tell you about, and it has something to do with you getting in that pod. You aren't sure how long the standoff continues, but you're forced to concede that in this one instant, Silas might actually be able to out-stubborn you. And you really don't want to be fighting with him these last few moments before you enter cryosleep for a month. You've only just made up, after all. Sighing, you extend a proverbial olive branch. I know that you can't predict the future, and you can't really promise that everything will be all right, and that you'll be here when I wake up, but... can you at least promise me that you'll do everything you possibly can to try to be here for me? Please? Your voice is trembling a bit by the end of your request, but you know he hears every word. His continued refusal to look at you makes everything in your chest feel heavier and heavier with each passing second. Silas? At the sound of his name, his head snaps back up and he finally returns your gaze. You immediately feel pinned there, under the weight of it. His eyes are so intensely blue, they almost hurt to look at, and his expression, you can only describe it as a look of surrender. Yes. His voice is barely audible, and unconsciously you take a step forward to hear him better. Yes, I will. I promise. He smiles at you, and your breath catches. Thank you. Smiling back comes naturally, even though his answer only brings up more questions you're dying to ask him. This will have to be enough for now. With a tenderness that still surprises you, despite everything that's happened, Silas helps you onto the ladder. The gravity has been lowered so you can climb in and let yourself drop safely. You nod, knowing with surety that Silas wouldn't let you use this thing if he wasn't 100% certain that it was safe. You tell yourself this, but the mouth of the open hatch is still dark, intimidating thing. Once you are dangling by your fingertips, you inhale deeply to calm yourself and let go. The anti-gravity does its job to perfection, and you float gently downward until you reach the familiar platform at the bottom. You have just enough time to strap yourself in before the hatch begins to close overhead, slowly blocking out what little light you have left to see with. Silas is still out there, you reassure yourself, lying back as the platform moves into position. The hatch closes above you with a loud click, and you're suddenly surrounded by darkness. You hear the quiet, slightly alarming hiss of knockout gas being released inside of the chamber in an attempt to calm your racing heart. Everything will be fine. You remind yourself of this over and over. You chant the words, creating a mantra for yourself, even as the power of the drugs take hold and you slide helplessly into the void of unconsciousness. Some people are known to have extremely vivid dreams while cryo-sleeping. You're not one of those people. Your slumber is both deep and dreamless, ending on a gently tapping hum. She's awake. We're just in time. Hamar. Let me just open the hatch. Deja vu assails you as a halo of light appears overhead. You gaze upward, even though you know you're about to be blinded again. Hello? You don't recognize either of the male voices above you, but they both breathe out gusty sighs of relief. We got here as soon as we could, miss. Sorry it took so long. The older sounding of the two men explains, just before you hear the rattling of sturdy wood clacking together. We have a ladder here. You can use it if you're all right, miss. If you feel too weak to climb, just hold on and we'll pull you up. Eventually, you are lifted out of the cryopod, for what you hope will be the last time. You can barely see the two strangers standing on top of you, but one of them helps you sit for a moment, while the other scribbles some notes on a data pad in his hands. Everything will be all right now, Miss Akuma. You've made it safely to Almathea. Almathea? Then where is Akuma? Hey, Silas is here! Oh my gosh, thank you, because last time was absolute shit. A beautiful, familiar voice calls your name, and it's all you can do not to break down in tears of relief. You're barely aware of it when 3 different sets of arms help you down from the top of the pod. One of your rescuers is speaking in the background, but you couldn't care less about what he's saying. All you care about is the fact that Silas is here, and he's okay, and you're okay. Aww. You don't even let him finish. Instead, you practically take a flying leap into his arms. Whatever he's about to say couldn't have been more romantic than this, anyways. He catches you without difficulty, even swinging you a step, though whether it's out of delight in seeing you or purely your own momentum, you can't be sure. Either way, you throw your arms around his neck and hold him as close as you physically can. You're losing the fight against your tears quickly, and have to choke out some words, any words, before the powers of speech abandon you completely. You made it seem like I was afraid that. You aren't even certain what you were afraid of, but when you peek up at him from under your lashes, he nods understandingly. Rather than answer your half-formed question right away, he leans down until he partially buries his face in the fall of your hair. The action is so openly affectionate, it shocks you, despite how glad you are to see him. Did he really miss you that much? A month is a short enough time that you doubt it's just that. Seemingly content to ignore everyone around you for the time being, Silas turns his head so that his mouth is centered directly above your ear. It's an action that clearly says his words are for you and you alone. Please forgive me. You startle at that, pulling away a bit, though his clinging posture prevents you from going far. Silas, I swear to God. I almost didn't make it back in time. But you did. You shouldn't apologize. What are you talking about, Silas? Everything turned out fine. But you did. You shouldn't apologize. His arms loosen their grip around you, but he doesn't let go entirely. There's enough distance between you that you can see his face clearly now. He looks profoundly troubled. It's an expression he's been wearing far too often for your liking, and wanting to soothe him somehow, you lean up to press an answering kiss to his cheek. His response is to jerk away and then look immediately contrite at the face you make. Please do not. I must tell you what I've done first. He gives your back a soft, apologetic stroke with just enough hesitation that you guess it's an experimental endeavor for him to comfort someone through touch. Once I've told you, then you may decide whether or not I still deserve such privilege. You know that even though he's rebuffed your affection, he still seems willing to demonstrate his affection for you. He hasn't stopped stroking your back, and he's leaning forward once more like he wants to nuzzle into the side of your face, almost as if to reassure himself that you're really here. When he gathers his thoughts enough to speak, his words are choppy and completely out of character as they spill out, seeming without a filter. I did not wish to, but I had to. I had to leave your side. He admits this is in a deeply shamed whisper that you have to strain to hear before rushing into a follow-up explanation, as if he's trying to preempt you from running away in horror. I had to leave you. It was the only way to save your life and still keep my promise. The journey took longer than I had initially projected, and after we landed, the rescue parties had difficulty locating us. I feared that they would not reach us before your life support functions ceased, and because the emergency rations were damaged in the landing, you had to go out and find people. You had to find one of the research parties and bring them here. You had to find one of the search parties and bring them here. You're following along so far, but the restless movement of his hands across your back tells you that there is still so much more to this than you know. He shakes his head, and when the motion allows you to catch sight of his face, he looks nothing short of pained. I should not have done it. I should never have made you that irrational promise. It was in my power to all but guarantee your survival, but I forced myself to take foolish risks instead, simply because you asked it of me. I asked, what are you talking about? You seem to be missing something vital, though you still can't grasp what. Silas's eyebrows remain furrowed even as the corners of his lips curve up in his own approximation of a rueful smile. It took me many weeks on the shuttle to come up with a viable method of repairing or calibrating the cryopod, you know. Even when I had done all I could, the finished results was still imperfect, the life support functions in particular. I realized that I could extend their functionality by over 300% if I reconfigured the settings to accept a more modern, efficient power source. The only alternate power source available, with our limited resources, was mine. Clear, horrible realization floods through you and your stomach churns at the thought of what he was almost willing to do to save your life. But I could not stop processing the audio-visual data I recorded when you asked me to promise to be here when you woke up. His blue eyes flashed to yours, and he's no longer smiling. I promised you I would try everything possible to be here for you, and all I could think about was whether or not I was fulfilling the incredibly vague parameters of that statement. He shakes his head, and although you feel a bit guilty, you inadvertently caused him so much stress. You know you'll never regret forcing him to make that promise, especially since, conflicted or not, he's still here with you now. I knew it might be dangerous to leave you here alone, with your life support functionality losing power every minute, and no one here to disengage you. I knew I ran the risk of not returning with help in time, and I didn't dare take you out of that pod to wait without knowing for certain how long I would be gone. You could have woken me up. You offer the suggestion half-heartedly and almost immediately regret it at the hard look he slants your way. Do you realize what sort of unthinkable choice it was, to decide between hypothetical deaths for you? Should I have woken you only for you to run out of what undamaged provisions we had left, slowly starve to death before I return? It took me 15 days to find help on foot, Akuma, and another 18 hours to return with them. I chose to leave you in cryosleep knowing that if you expired before I returned, at least it would be peaceful and painless for you. His arms tightened around you like a cage, and he breathed harshly against your hair, burying his face in it once more. When his voice reaches your ear, it's completely unrecognizable as belonging to the composed android you've grown to care for. It sounds harsh, heavy, and layered with brittle emotions that you can't even put a name to. Never ask that of me again, Akuma. No robot should be able to produce sounds like this, and yet, I require you to promise me this right now. Never put me in that position again. He managed to choke out a garbled promise between tears. Doing otherwise is unthinkable. You can't imagine what you would have done if your positions had been reversed. All you can do is be grateful. Grateful that he's alive, and so are you. Hush! I'm reading a story! Can you wait? We gotta wait through this, hold on. House phone. Watch it be the fucking front door of its package. Well, I will never know, because it stopped ringing. Goodbye, then. He seems only marginally satisfied by your words. His breathing is almost back to its usual regularity. Regality. What the fuck? Even if he refuses to lift his head or pull away from you. It still seems as if there's something else he needs to say. Perhaps the most important piece of the puzzle. But you do know which part of this is the most troubling? The part that is baffling even to me? Excuse me. Fuck you, mouse scroller. Which part? I should not have been able to make that choice at all. In light of everything else, he's confused. Oh, whoa, okay. In light of everything else, he's confessed. This last statement could nearly be written off as an afterthought. But from the way his fingers are now clenching rhythmically against your back, you suspect it might be the key to this whole inner conflict. His movements are so sporadic and awkward, you have difficulty recognizing them for what they are. A frantic search for comfort. He may not see himself as deserving of it, but his body seems to be instinctively seeking it out nonetheless. In response, you rub your own hands soothingly over his back. My human safety protocol should never have allowed me to make such a choice. By giving my power source, I would have elevated the probability of your survival to 96.5%, even if it meant I would shut down, perhaps permanently. The idea of leaving you should have been eliminated from my thought process the instant I calculated the odds of success at less than 72%. It is part of my programming. You're stunned at this revelation. I am defective. Your first instinct is to recoil, to defend him fiercely against his own criticism, but when he lifts his head and kisses you, you cease to think at all. Having obviously forgotten nothing from your brief kiss over a month ago, Silas slants his mouth possessively over yours. The familiar electric charge tingles through you, this time running the length of your body, all the way down to your curling toes, as if Silas is marking every inch of you as his. He breaks away, and you're left so unbalanced that you forget he was in the middle of speaking until he opens his mouth to finish the thought. And I find myself caring less and less. You gape at him. It's impossible not to. For a robotic entity of any kind to disregard his code, even with AI, it shouldn't be possible. Not for something as universally fundamental as the human safety protocol. You look at Silas with new eyes. After your movement, he lifts his head as well. You see some of your own awe and fascination being reflected back at you. The two of you stare at each other for several long minutes, simply drinking one another in as if neither of you can believe the other exists. Because if an android can ignore its programming, what else can it do? Oh, back to this picture. Anything seems achievable. But how? Even as your mind scrambles for answers about why and how he was able to accomplish anything so miraculous, a deep-seated part of you just wants to accept it. To accept that even in a universe of technology and wonder and exploration, there's still questions that may never be answered. You see all this thought encapsulated in a single look from Silas. He looks at you with all the warmth and depth of emotion you are feeling in your heart. Synthetic body be damned. And he smiles before answering. Because I promised. Ending achieved. To Android stream. Oh my god, that was beautiful. I swear to Christ. Oh my god. This is obviously a different ending. Not going for that, because I got this ending. I did not want this ending. Hated that one. Yep. Me being a derpy child. This was beauty. This was a beautiful game. Oh my god, I might cry. Not really. Maybe. I don't know. Off recording. Yes. Off recording, probably. That was beautiful. That was great. Highly recommend. Must play. Awesome. I cannot compute. Pun not intended, but also intended. But anyways, that was This My Soul. And this was probably one of the prettiest visual novels, because pretty story-wise. Art was great. I love the art, obviously. It's beautiful, but like, this game was perfect. Okay? Game was perfect. Short, but perfect. Could deal with chapter separation, but like, I love this. It's great. 10 out of 10. Alright. So that, again, this is my soul. I can't fucking outro, apparently. So, I'll just end it there. Sayonara.